Hi, Keith here. The Rebel Civics show on the Unsafe Space Network is an education and discussion show on the principles of government, society, and individual rights. Today, we're talking about the astounding thing that just happened in libertarian politics in Reno. The Mises Caucus, that's the faction of actual libertarians within the Libertarian Party. They just did a clean sweep takeover of the whole national party machine. Today's guest, Dennis Pratt, was there. Dennis is a libertarian who originally came from the left. He was the #1 writer on competitive intellectual site Quora on libertarianism. For 4 years, he wrote 1,800 essays, and then he was deplatformed. I read a bunch of his essays. He was a bit too truthful. Even Quora can't handle that. He then moved to the free state of New Hampshire 3 years ago, and he volunteers as the chef de village of Porkfest. He's La Grand Fumage organizer of the thing. I was there last year. It was great. It's a Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's not about pork chops. Porcupines are their symbol. It's the longest continuing freedom gathering in the world. Dennis redesigned it, doubling its size and selling it out for the first time. Last year had 2,500 attendees and 700 events. And it's a week-long immersion in liberty. This year, it's going to be 10% larger. Dennis has an undergrad psychology and a graduate computer science degree from Northwestern and a grad business degree from MIT. He's a lifelong serial telecom and social entrepreneur. So Dennis was a delegate from New Hampshire at the National Convention in Reno. He got the highest number of votes at the New Hampshire State Convention when they picked the delegates. So Dennis, welcome to the show.
I just ate a banana.
You ate a banana in the intro? That means my intro was too long.
I do have something though.
Okay, I could talk for another minute.
You
got your hat.
I remember you from Porkfest. I know your hat. I was trying to find a straw hat. Here's my contribution. I have the Hawaiian shirt and the Keith hat.
Very nice. I like it. I live in Florida, for those that don't know, so I appreciate your palm trees. And I'm not going to publicly expose the top of my head, but just everybody should know I cannot go outside without a hat on in South Florida. So today I want to talk about this clean sweep that happened with the Mises Caucus. I've been following them from the outside. I'm not a member of the party, but I have been voting libertarian most of my life, back to David Bergland and Ron Paul and Harry Brown. But I'm not a member of the party. I've been watching the Mises Caucus over the last few years, listening to Dave Smith and Tom Woods, and heard a lot about it at the Mises 10 at Porkfest. What happened last week in Reno makes me want to pay a lot more attention to the party. Like, I think I got some hope now. So tell us what happened there.
I don't even know where to start. I mean, I'm back where you are, Keith. I became a libertarian in 81, 82 was my 81. I think I started subscribing to Reason magazine. 82, I joined the Libertarian Party. And I remember walking into my first Libertarian Party meeting and not really clicking with the folks there, going, I'm coming from the left. These are mostly, kind of coming from the right folks. And I don't know that we really fit. I don't think I'd hang around with them. But I stuck with it. I was a delegate for 1988. I voted with Bergland like you. I delegate in 1988. And by the mid 90s, though, I'd kind of given up on the LP. Yes, I'm going to vote libertarian every single place I can because I believe in it. But the Libertarian Party just wasn't conveying the libertarian message that I loved, that converted me, that made me think this is how humans should be treating one another. That live and let live, accept and respect each other, and require consent for all relationships. I was going, what's the Libertarian Party? There was a bunch of wongs. I kind of retired from active work in the party, and eventually, I was still very much libertarian and trying my best way in a whole bunch of interesting ways that I actually cover in an unsafe space, trying to convey the beauty that I saw in libertarianism. And when I moved to the Free State, I was so excited to go to the Libertarian Party Convention because I had only gone in the authoritarian 49 states, in 6 different places. I'd gone to these Libertarian Party. I go, oh, here I am in the Free State. It's where the most base libertarians are. And the Libertarian Party is going to have a really, truly based Libertarian Party. And I walked in and it was so depressing. It was like I was back in Chicago. My first meeting. And they were, primarily wonks, no inspiration, no excitement, no beauty, not really sharing that vision that we have for a new way of people interacting peacefully as opposed to violently. I was approached at that time by 2 guys who were just starting up the Mises chapter of the LPNH, the Libertarian Party New Hampshire, LPNH. They supported me, I supported them, but I wasn't Mises. I appreciate the Mises Institute, always have, and I've really come to utilize their work, contribute to them all the time. But still, the Mises Caucus, I understand economics. I killed economics at MIT. I understand it really well, but that's not what excites me. What excites me is freeing human beings, freeing human potential. But when they came in eventually and took over. New Hampshire was the first place that the Mises Caucus took over. I was voting right alongside with them just because I agreed with their perspectives. Not because I was, a Mises Caucus. I didn't even identify as a Mises Caucus. Eventually, I did go over to the Mises Caucus. After they tried to take over, after the group that's, I don't know the right name for them. Tom Woods calls them the loser brigade in the Libertarian Party. I hate that term because it's so divisive. I call them the PCDCs. Okay, because it's a coalition.
It's the other term, like left libertarian. Is that
it's a coalition of the politically correct. So kind of the woke-tarians. Racism is the thing that we're all organizing and fighting, and it's just so outside of libertarianism. We fight violence. We don't fight thoughts. It's the DC Beltway. The people who say, look, the way to liberty is to plead with our masters and beg them for a little bit more liberty. And, and if we're good and they like us, okay, great. Well, the Mises Caucus is kind of like, more in your face. They're not pleading. They're demanding freedom. It's also got the kind of the pragmatist group who say, look, yes, long term, we want human freedom, but we can't let the other side know that. So we need to just kind of increment our way, just very slowly, very slowly. And of course, the libertarian socialists, the folks who are, they deny property. They say we have the first rights to the term libertarian. I understand their argument. It was, Murray Rothbard, really was tweaking their nose when he pushed libertarian because he was fighting socialism. But I understand their argument. It's just that denying property rights enslaves us all, and I have a long series of ethical arguments for that. So it's a group of a whole bunch of people, mostly stuck in the authoritarian 49. They have no hope for ever actually creating freedom in their states, and they're jockeying for positions. And here comes this kind of Mises Caucus people saying, no, we are bare bones libertarians. We are not afraid to talk about libertarianism. We're not afraid to talk about it consequentially. That it is the right thing for the majority of people. Maybe not for rulers, but certainly for the common man. And we're not afraid to talk about it ethically, that we have a human right to own to self-own. And so the Mises Caucus, when they first came in, they were pretty much battered by this PCDC segment, that very large. They had run the Libertarian Party pretty much into the ground. The big joke in those days was, small L libertarians like myself would say, well, I'm libertarian, but not Libertarian Party. Even though I still had my card from '82, I was going, I don't really want to associate with them. That's not really, what I am is an ethical libertarian. I believe that in self-ownership. I believe that we all have a right to own our own bodies, and no one has a superior right to own us. And therefore, boom, libertarianism. So they beat up on them, and they mocked them, and what happened though was they made a big strategic error. They started denigrating all the great leaders of libertarian, past leaders, libertarian thought. Murray Rothbard was horrible, and just going right down. Just everybody was horrible and a racist, right? The PC, the wokearians were just calling everyone a racist and a Nazi and a homophobe, and just right out of the left playbook. And then they were denigrating our current most successful libertarian proselytizers, the people who have brought in so many people into this small L libertarian thinking. And they were just like denigrating them and slandering them on a regular basis, defaming them only because they wanted to appeal to the masters or to the woke left, or to make people feel like, oh, libertarians is really safe. Libertarian is an unsafe space for authoritarianism. So anyway, that was a big battle, and they went after the wrong people, and all of a sudden, the small L libertarians said, "What? This group that I only barely put up with is denigrating the people who have the best thoughts, the best ideas? No, we're not going to stand for that." And thousands flooded into the Libertarian Party in all the different states, all these small L libertarians. And of course, the PCDCs called them right-wing extremists and Nazis and homophobes and racists and white supremacists and everything that they could throw at them, from the authoritarian playbook, which was just so shocking to me. I'm going, why are you playing from the authoritarian playbook? The reason why they're playing from the authoritarian playbook is because it works so effectively on them. Doesn't work on people from the Free State Project. We're far too based. We don't believe that stuff. We don't put up with it. So we took over state after state. The Mises Caucus took over state after state, and we walked into the convention. We had about 70% of that convention, it was amazing. It was extremely frustrating. 1988, when my first convention, Keith, I said I would never go to another convention. I hate politics. I hate the wonkism and the parliamentary maneuvering and I hate politics. I really do. In the Free State, I do mostly social stuff. I create community clubhouses and inns and pork fest and just events and have a lot of fun. So I build community, but at the end, I was so exhausted and so frustrated, so angry. And I looked to see what we had done. And I was like, amazed. Every single one of the people we wanted for a position had gotten in. Every single one of the platforms we wanted had gotten in. And it was just this clean sweep of this new wave of small L libertarians saying the Libertarian Party has gotten so far out of whack that we can't put up with it anymore. We're not going to put up with it anymore. We are going to reset it. That's why they call it the Reno reset. We're going to reset it back to libertarianism. And now we're going to see what we can do as libertarians. We're going to live and die as libertarians, not as authoritarian lights. I'm sorry, that was a long answer to a short question.
No, that was more history than I had asked for, but that's good for people that don't understand where this Mises Caucus came from. The party, like I haven't followed the party anywhere near that close, but I became what I would probably call a libertarian by the 80s. He said I voted for Ron Paul, like that was 88. Before that, I don't think I knew about it. I voted for John Anderson in my first election. But I do have, I don't know if I should be proud or not, but I have the record. I've never once voted for a winning presidential candidate. And I don't think I've ever once wanted the one that won to be the president. I think that's the reason. So the Libertarian Party was always my default. I never had much interest in politics, and I still don't. I'm actually kind of done with DC overall. But I voted for Libertarian candidates most of the time was kind of a default. Sometimes I really followed them and knew a lot about them, like Ron Paul. Harry Brown, like I loved Harry Brown. Like I can't imagine what that would have done. His book, I read his book. That was one of the we were talking before the show of eye-opening books. Why Government Doesn't Work. Remember that one?
Yep.
Like I read that book and voted for him both times. Like he was great. I'd love to have a Harry Brown back or Ron Paul. After that, I remember Bob Barr. Sort of, like not all that well. I don't know. I remember the name. I think I voted for him, but I'm not quite sure. And then after that, it was Gary Johnson and then Joe Jorgensen. And like, I didn't want anything to do with them being president. Like I didn't want Trump or Hillary, but I didn't want Gary Johnson. I didn't want Obama. I didn't want Mitt Romney. Who do you vote for? So starting like that was 2012. I didn't vote. I just like, I'm not even going to vote. Like, I can't even hold my nose and vote Libertarian now. So what do? The party's totally off the rail. And then Gary Johnson gets to go again. And now it's Trump and Hillary. So like that election, I actually went to vote because I was working with somebody trying to get rid of our congressman in this area. So I did go to the polls and I just left the presidential one blank. Like there's nobody I wanted to check off. I forget who the Green Party was, but she was crazy. And then last year, Joe Jorgensen, I don't even know if I want to get into that, but yeah, like left Libertarian promoting Black Lives Matter and thinking that, yeah, we probably do need to lock down and social distance. And it's like, this is not Libertarian. Like, this is like just ridiculous. So I paid almost no attention to the party the last 5 or 6 years. Last election, I wrote in Thomas Massey. I didn't know who to vote for. I didn't want Biden. I didn't want Trump. Already had his shot, even though it was entertaining to watch Trump. I wrote in Thomas Massey because he's like already going to DC. So I wasn't going to write in somebody that isn't already willing to do it. Like I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But he's already going there and he's good. So I wrote him in. Now I see this Mises Caucus. I hung out at the Mises Caucus tent some at PorcFest last year. That was my first serious introduction to it. Since last year, I've been paying a lot more attention to it and listening to Dave Smith and Tom Woods and talk about it. Like, I don't know. I've never been a member of a party, but I'm going to watch this a little closely. I might actually at least send some money and think about this. I think I'm a Mises Caucus guy, but I'm not a party member, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess I'm libertarian.
So yeah, I think it's it's just been so hard. I mean, I vote my rule is for the longest time is if there's a libertarian on the ballot, I vote libertarian. I don't care who it is, just to indicate to other people we're still here. There are still people who believe in human freedom. Yeah, you may be voting authoritarian, but don't forget there's this remnant out here that believes in human freedom. And then I would vote against whichever incumbent, just thinking, I've got to knock the person out who has the most crony friends, get them out of there. But I think the party had drifted so far into when they start smearing Tom Woods and Dave Smith as racist, homophobe, transphobe, white supremacist, Nazis. I go, okay, I can't stand you guys, and I will not support what you are doing to our best people, and I will not support it. I think what you're doing is dishonorable. You are lying only for political gain, and you're lying. That's actually how I joined the Mises Caucus. By December, I couldn't believe what was going on, and I'd written, I was very popular in Quora. Which is this very, very thin ethical intellectual group, very few people on it, but they were all people from various strains of thought, including classical liberal and things like that. And I thought, okay, who else but I can kind of bridge this gap between the Mises Caucus, which was running New Hampshire at the time, and I thought extraordinarily respectfully and competently they were based. They were not pulling punches on libertarian messages, which was scaring the affiliates in the authoritarian 49. But still, they were consistent and they were successful. They were so successful in explaining and getting people excited about the libertarian message. And the kind of the old guard, this PCDC group, which I understood, and so I went into all of their various groups with an olive branch and saying, look, how can we work together? What's the way of getting past this? Do we not agree that the violence of the state is really the problem? How the state enslaves us by giving us mandates and telling us what we may and may not do with our own bodies, and how we may move our bodies in what they call labor, and with whom we may associate or with whom we must associate, and what we must do with the sweat and blood of and lifespan that our body invests into some sort of product and is therefore our property. Can't we just say what they're doing, this destruction of humanity, is really our problem? And we'll work on pronouns outside of libertarianism. Can we do that? And
yeah, that doesn't seem like I would make pronouns part of the party plank. That's not really a fundamental thing. If you're down to arguing about whether or not what pronouns you should use, let's talk about ending all the wars. Like there's more important things to worry about. I've been using the term old guard, I guess, for all three of the four factions. If there's four, you mentioned, I wrote them down to make sure I remember them. The left, the libertarian left, and then the prags, they call them the pragmatists. It just they look at it as a practical thing, and the libertarian socialists, and then the Mises Caucus. I don't want to call them the losers, even though they did lose, because you really do want most of them to stay on board and help, right? If they agree on the fundamental things. So I've been using the phrase the old guard. The old guard is gone.
The trouble with the old guard is that in New Hampshire, the two oldest Libertarian Party members is myself and Kevin Tyson. Kevin Tyson's famous because at last PorcFest, he was going to debate about whether we should remove this bigotry platform from the Libertarian Party on the main stage with the chair of the Vermont Libertarian Party. And the Vermont Libertarian Party was part of this PCDC group, and he was coming all set to call the guy racist and all this stuff. You're just a Nazi, until he found out that Kevin's black. Now, all of a sudden his car broke down and he couldn't make. He's the only man who I scheduled for the pavilion who did not show up. Hundreds of people. He's the only one who didn't show up. Because he's too scared. They have one game plan. One game plan. Call names. Call smears. And
call names. That's the left tactic. So of 700 events last year, one person didn't.
Oh no.
There was a couple that did.
For the big stage.
For the pavilion.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a couple other people that didn't.
That's where you get the most people coming, and that's the largest vision.
Say, oopsie, he's black. His whole argument falls apart. So, he's going to call somebody a racist, yet his entire argument falls apart because the guy he's going to debate is a different race, is a particular race. So his argument doesn't work. I think that says who's the racist. I saw him calling Dave Smith a Nazi. I remember Dave saying, I think was it Joe Jorgensen? I mean, it was people in the mainstream control of the Libertarian Party calling Dave Smith a racist and a Nazi. And Dave's response was, well, they have a bit of a problem here. I'm Jewish. I don't know how much you know about Nazis, but those guys really wouldn't want me in their club. I've got family members that were killed in the Holocaust. No, I'm saying libertarian things, but that doesn't make me a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. Yeah. It's the same problem as the black guy. I didn't know the guy was black. That's it's explanatory. It calls him out for what he is. So the next level is my car broke down. That's the next thing.
So who's the old guard? I'm Mises Caucus. He's Mises Caucus. We both became libertarian in the 80s. We both were at the 1988 where Ron Paul was convention, where Ron Paul was elected. And we're the Nazis. We're not the old guard. These old guard people are like 10 years, 12 years max. They're not old as in like us. Old.
Yeah.
So
I need a different term.
Well, I like.
I was trying to use something that's not too PC. That's good. Okay.
PCDC, like ACDC. PCDC is a politically correct and the DC Beltway combined. We're not including the libertarian socialists. We're not continuing including the pragmatists. We're not including the really staunch minarchists or classical liberals who say no. We definitely want a large government, or a small government, and anything that suggests that we're not doing that. That's not libertarian. We don't want those people there. The very adamant minarchists. Because Mises Caucus is shrinking government down pretty damn small. I would go to fully consensual relationships. For me, but I'm kind of a minority in there. But anyway, what I wanted to say,
all the way down to, go ahead. I was going to say down to the minimum government. Like I don't know when I became at what I would call the line of libertarian, but I mean, since the 90s, I've known about this 4-axis thing. Right and am I right? No. Am I left? No. Am I conservative? No. Am I liberal? No. Am I Republican? No. Am I Democrat? No. I'm not in them. Those are all up here, authoritarian, and I'm on the libertarian side. To me, the most interesting, probably the last 2 decades at least, the most interesting political arguments are how far to go between libertarian as the upper top maximum I would ever want to be near, and anarchy. And I'm somewhere on that line, and I'm moving farther down as I get older and older. But like anything libertarian and above, as far as authority, I'm like, no, I don't want that.
I don't want to get into a conversation about self-ownership and ethics. We have a conversation though, yes, Keith, at some point to talk about that.
We should do a whole show on that, I think. Yeah, so for this show, so Angela McArdle is the new chair. That's a huge change from the previous leadership. Right? Sarwark is out. He's I don't know if he's butthurt is the right word, but I saw some pictures and some articles. He's out. Angela, I've listened to some talk. She's great. And Karen Ann Harlos is back. The pink flame of liberty. She's a pistol. That says a lot about what the party is. So want to say a little bit about what Angela McArdle, what her position is?
I just want to say that for a misogynist Mises Caucus group, they're doing just really badly in choosing leaders.
Right. They picked two women for 2 top. That's a good point, right? Yeah. Is it a Nazi group might pick a Jewish guy to be the president, a kind of a very late white-skinned Jewish guy as the presidential candidate, for a neo-Nazi group. Right.
I think it was Key. Was it called Key and Peele? They had a comedy show, and they had this one guy who was a blind black guy who joined the KKK.
That's good. That's good.
But I guess that must be us. We're just reprobates. It's sad. It was interesting. I invite people. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have snippets yet, but just go back and listen to the speeches given by candidates who are associated with the Mises Caucus and the candidates who are associated with the PCDCs, right? The PCDCs are dull, uninspiring, boring. They're not principled. They're not getting people excited. And then the Mises Caucus come on, and it's like, yeah, this is where we're going, baby. And it's so true of our candidates. The biggest problem with JoJo wasn't just that she was controlled by a bunch of woketerians in her group. It was that she was uninspiring. And then you listen to Dave Smith, and he is, he's solid on intellectual part. So he understands the argument, and you can actually push him, and he'll start with self-ownership. He'll start, look, we have to start with self-ownership, which is, I think, the ethical foundation of libertarianism. It is why it's so important, so critical. But he's funny. He's quick. The skill that he has with words are just so incredible. So he's inspiring. So you put those two combinations together, which we've never had, right? The argument for the Libertarian Party is that, well, we're really solid on the intellectual back, why we all should be libertarian, but we just don't have the fiery speakers who can excite the general population. Well, we lost this part. Over the last couple of decades, we just lost this part. And the people who are in there do not reflect libertarian ethics, do not reflect libertarian consequentialism, are distracting us as though they were controlled opposition, Keith, distracting us with arguments over pronouns and transphobia and racism and all this stuff, which is just so far outside of what it is that we're trying to do, which is end violence, interpersonal violence, systematic interpersonal violence, orchestrated and led by the state. We're trying to stop that. That's what we're trying to stop, and not all this other stuff. Deal with that in your church, or go talk to people about it. That's totally fine. It's not libertarianism. We have one job and one job only. So we lost our ideological base. We never had the fire and brimstone. Anyone who thinks Ron Paul is an exciting speaker, my God, what? No, you are not paying attention. You've mentioned Harry Brown. He probably was the furthest along of all of our ever candidates. But now we have people who are really solid. I mean, so solid and unafraid. Ron Paul, although he really is an ethical libertarian, he starts off with being a constitutionalist to make it safe for kind of a Republican base, and he's scared to kind of go the full ideology. You'll hear it. It'll come in about the third sentence, the fourth sentence. We'll talk about, you own your own body and that type of thing. Whereas our guys are now really solid on the intellectual backpinning. And they've got the fire. Yeah. I'm trying to think of whether there was any Mises Caucus candidate that got up there and talked that I was falling asleep at. Whereas the see, I almost got there. The PCDCs. The loser brigade. Were so boring. I mean, there were a couple of people that, and it was funny because the PCDC candidate for chair got up there. And there were a couple of them, and everyone's talking around and being really bored, and passing notes and trying to get business done and not really listening to it. And Angela McArdle gets up there, and no one was talking. Even the PCDCs had stopped their conspiring and were actually listening to what she was saying. Now, I don't understand why you hear that and you go, why isn't that our leader? Why isn't that somebody who is solid fundamentally, more solid than we've had for decades, and can actually speak, can excite, can galvanize, and that's really what I'm so excited because for me, I was voting Libertarian Party and contributing to them here and there only because I wanted to tell people. There is this thing called libertarianism, and you might come in because you're curious about the Libertarian Party, but maybe you'll find out about the philosophy, and maybe you'll find out about the ethics, about how we should be treating one another as human beings and respecting each other's self-ownership. Boy, that would be incredible if that would happen. So that's the only reason I voted in those elections. And now we have this combination of really solid explaining to the common man why freedom is not only consequentially beneficial to the most people, but it is ethically required of us as good human beings. It is ethically required of us as good human beings. So we have that, and we have people who can speak to it and inspire and excite. That's a powerful combination. I moved to the free state because I gave up on the idea that we could convert 100 million people, 100 million Americans into being libertarians. You try talking about these ideas at your Thanksgiving table and tell me how far you get. You're not going to. I was one of the most successful proselytizers around, and I only could get people who were intellectually curious. Someone like yourself, Keith, who well, tell me about that. Let me think about that. Most people are so closed down and they're not interested in these ideas. They don't want to talk about them. They were told what's what in third grade by their government school teacher and their coach, and that's it. That's all they need to know. But now I said, okay, conversion will never work. It's never going to work. So
not at that scale, right? The whole union is too big of a scale to ever create the liberty society you're talking about. Go ahead. Why don't you talk for a bit about the Free State Project for people that don't know?
Yeah, it was the Free State Project. The way to think of the Free State Project: take the Mormons who all reside in Utah. Okay, take them out of Utah and smear them randomly across the United States. Now tell them that their only chance to have freedom of religion is to convert all Americans into Mormonism. What's the chances of that happening? Very low, very low. I think it's actually a higher chance of that happening than converting people into libertarianism. But what instead the Mormons did was they gathered all the Mormons and they took over one state. And that's a Mormon state. They have freedom of religion. They are not vilified and attacked within their own state. And they don't have any onus to try to convert other people in order to actually be free. Libertarians are just as scattered, very randomly associated. So what we're doing is we're bringing the best libertarians into one state. It's a smaller state. It's a state that we already have a very strong libertarian streak in it. But we're bringing the most base people into this one state to make that a libertarian homeland, like the Mormons have their homeland. Mm-hmm. And we have more than 1/50th of the population. I'm sorry, we do. So we should have one state because we can't live with authoritarians. Authoritarians want to enslave us. That is their job. That is what they believe. They ignore us and they go, oh, yeah, that's so cute, your ideas about freedom. But, still, I'm going to pass a law and you're still going to have to do this. Well, in the Free State, we have enough power now that we are pushing back on the government. All the authoritarian 49 are just shooting at various trajectories towards totalitarianism. In the Free State, we're actually moving towards freedom. Last year was we reduced total taxes and we reduced the state budget. The only state to do either of those two. And we are, we're creating community clubhouses, liberty clubhouses all around the state. We have agorism. We're number one in crypto. We have people just living entirely on crypto. They use no U.S. government fiat. We're number one or number two, depending on whether you're talking to someone from Wyoming or not, on guns. We've been constitutional carry since 2017, and this past legislation, the government insinuates itself so much into all of our lives. There was this one stupid law for the game and fisheries group that you couldn't have a gun on a snowmobile. We got rid of that one too. We're trying to get rid of all these laws that just impede human freedom. So we're number one or number two in guns. We're the lowest in terms of murder rate, right? You go to a Free State event, and you're going to see more libertarians than you'll probably see, in a year in your authoritarian state. You can have a lot more fun, and we have 5, 6, 7, publicly available liberty events per day. And then you start belonging to the various groups. We have all these parallel institutions that we're starting up. You belong to those groups, and those groups have meaning. So it's living. PorcFest is like this immersion into this simulated liberty village, and we've been doing this for 19 years, trying to explain to people this is what we're going for. Eventually, what we want is New Hampshire to be a liberty state. We're actually creating it. So at some point, we obviate PorcFest. We no longer need PorcFest because all you do is just come to the Free State and boom, you're there. And we invite everyone to come out. It's funny because we were the first state in the LP to actually become Mises Caucus. They took over the Mises Caucus with my support, although I still say I was not Mises Caucus. I just agreed with them on all most of their positions. And everyone there now associates the LPNH, the New Hampshire Libertarian Party, with Mises Caucus. Well, we're actually more farther out there than the Authoritarian 49 Mises Caucuses because we can be. Everyone else is totally surrounded by authoritarians. The authoritarians are threatening them all the time, and they're scared. In the Free State, we don't have to be because we're getting numbers. We have more and more people showing up every day. Just coming in. We have progressive authoritarians leaving the state in frustration. Because they got plenty of options. They can go to Vermont. And be
Massachusetts right there.
They got Massachusetts, they got Connecticut, Rhode Island, they got New York, which is number 50 on the Cato State Freedom Index. You can move from number 1 in the Cato Freedom Index, which is New Hampshire, over to New York in about 3 hours. It's a 3-hour U-Haul. Go, have fun. So anyway, and we currently, I don't like politics, but yet we control the majority of the majority in the House. So we are passing getting rid of terrible laws or passing great laws. I don't know what you want to say, but we are removing laws that impede human potential, and it's so exciting to be. But what I was saying was that I kind of said, okay, I don't believe that we'll ever get there in the Authoritarian 49. And then I see what's happening with the Mises Caucus and with the Libertarian Party. And I see what's happening with people who are actually able to elocute the beauty of libertarianism. And I go, well, I wonder how many people we could convert. I know it can't be 100 million. But can we go for 10 million? Can we go for 20 million?
You don't need 100 million to change it, right? Because most normies will just go along with whatever's happening. If you keep Netflix working and don't stop the pizza delivery, they'll go along. So it's the people that care. So seeing this many people that care in Reno is encouraging at the national level, even though I think it's probably just staving off the inevitable. All empires end eventually, at least world history says. And the bigger the empire, the harder they fall. And the United States is the biggest empire in world history. So, I don't expect it to last forever. So we see a place like New Hampshire. That's the place to be the kind of place to be. I think there's other ones. I live in Florida. Florida's not too bad. I know you're lumping it into this authoritative 49, but, actually, I was in both New Hampshire and Florida in the middle of the COOF lockdowns, and Florida was actually a little better than.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Not Lancaster, not PorcFest, but
if you look at the Cato Index of State Freedom, right? It's 235 variables, and on any state, people go, well, on my state, here's these 2 variables. The thing is to look at is, first of all, across all those variables, we're cumulatively way out there, and then look at the vector. Now, you guys have kind of an authoritarian system, and it depends on who the governor is, right? That governor has so much power, and he just and you got lucky with DeSantis. If you're kind of a conservatarian, when the progressives are on the ascent, he's still an authoritarian. And next election, we're building bottom up. We're
Florida
building
could have been
up.
Totally different. DeSantis only won by a fraction of a percent. It was very close. And the guy that was the other side was a batshit crazy authoritarian. Way worse than DeSantis. What's that?
Was that Chris?
I don't even want to say his name. I don't want to promote him. He was a hard left socialist authoritarian. DeSantis is still a Republican, traditional conservative, power hungry, probably has his eyes on DC and the president, like everybody keeps talking about that. But he was better than almost all governors the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
it's so funny.
I don't normally vote for Republican, but I did vote for DeSantis. I'm glad DeSantis got in.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point was more, I'm not really objecting. I agree with you about New Hampshire. I think Florida was number 2 on the index, and
yes, Florida
used to be number 1.
Actually, the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, they took over number 1 year. I don't remember why, but I think it was 2016. They bumped over New Hampshire, but then we passed them, and then we've been saying bye bye Florida, because look, and national divorce is going to happen. Okay, you're going to get the progressives moving to progressive states. You're going to get conservatives moving to conservative states. The thing is that libertarians really aren't progressives, and they're not conservatives. And so we need one place that's kind of ours. You can hide out in a conservative state for a while, especially when progressivism is in the ascendancy, and you're going to feel a lot safer. But push comes to shove, they're still authoritarians. And your vote, when you go to New Hampshire, you have 25 times, your vote counts 25 times as much as it does in Florida. You have to have 25 times the number of people number of libertarians moving to Florida for one person moving to one libertarian moving to New Hampshire. So it's a small state that we can actually take over. We've been working on this for 19 years. We have parallel institutions, we have clubhouses, we have just support structures, we have the crypto and guns, and we've already pushed back on so many laws, and we're pushing back on even more. We have our toes in the legislature, and then when our governor, who was chosen by Cato as the #1 governor in the United States right before COVID hit, and then boom, he just went crazy because we had some stupid vestige laws that allowed a conservative authoritarian to take over. Well, guess what we did? We went in there, and the last couple of years we've erased all those stupid laws that were put in there for 9/11, all that type of stuff. And so now, he's a lot less able to control the state. Whereas, the Florida, you guys have a real problem with whoever the person is in that authoritarian seat. Sure, you can hope he's going to be reasonable. He's not going to do things that I hate, but he still has that level of control over your life. We're trying to remove that control over your life, that your life belongs to you. That's what we're going for, and not that your life belongs to the state. But hey, maybe there'll be a good master in there. We don't want any masters.
It's a powerful argument, the consolidation, and like I said, that I'm pretty much done with trying to fix DC. It's one of the reasons. It's a second reason I haven't been paying a lot of attention to national politics and the National Libertarian Party, is because I don't think DC can be fixed at this point. I think it's a hopeless relationship, and I spent a significant amount of time doing it. I think I may have mentioned it. I've spent 2 years work with Convention of States, thinking we could fix the Constitution and that would solve the problem. That ain't going to work. It's too late for that solution. So I'm all for the secession, nullification, states' authority, consolidating. We got to get liberty-minded people together and kind of give up. You're not going to convert 325 million normies or 300 million normies and 25 million freedom lovers. You got to consolidate with the freedom people. It's interesting to see how many there are, really, because it's hard to tell with people whose their whole political goal is we're going to get power and then leave you alone. They're not really the ones that have this burning desire to control everything. It's actually a burning desire to not control. So their life goal is not to get into Congress in DC. And it's hard to tell how many there really are. One of the planks that I was reading, some of the changes or proposed changes with the new party. Beverly, if you want to put up the one that's called self-determination, and Dennis had brought this up. they're changing the terms. Thanks, Beverly. I just read this the other day. I love the self-determination. So the current wording, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of individual liberty, is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to agree to such new governance as to them seems most likely to protect their liberty. That's pretty close to the Declaration of Independence, like where they're saying like people have the right to alter or abolish it. But the new wording I love. It's adding in some, like, I think I'd call it what I've been terming actual libertarian things like nullification and secession. So you want to read the new one, Dennis? The middle one.
Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of individual liberty, it is the right of the people to alter, abolish, or withdraw from it, and to agree to such new governance, or none, as to them shall seem most likely to protect their liberty. We recognize the right to political self-determination, including secession. Exercise of this right does not require permission from others.
That is beautiful. That's somebody, even though I'm not one to like correct and update Thomas Jefferson's words, like that's good. I think at the time that the original Declaration was written, like secession, of course, secession was allowed. Like they didn't even feel the need to write it down. In fact, they were seceding from England at the time, and they often talked about states leaving the Union. I mean, the year after the Constitution was signed, Massachusetts was talking about leaving the Union. They understood this from the beginning, but a lot of people have lost sight of this. Having a national political party like be totally upfront, basically in your face, compared to what the milquetoast version of the previous party. I just want to highlight a couple words there. And some of this we're reading for the audio. A lot of people listen to the podcast version of this. But, they added to alter, abolish, or withdraw from it, which they're adding in that you don't have to overthrow the government. You can just leave and start a new one. And that's a key. That's a key right of self-governance. And the second one in there, when they say, and to agree to such new governance or none, they're leaving it open for no government. That's great.
Yeah, that is something
I look forward to this getting through.
That is something, well, it did get through. It did get through. And that is something that
this has already been changed?
It's already been changed. We voted on that. As a matter of fact, the end of the convention, Karen Ann Harlow said, look, the platform committee has been working so hard on all these things. And, and there were all these dilatory parliamentary tactics that the PCDCs were using to try to stop the Mises Caucus from making the changes that we wanted to make. So she basically said, okay, look, what if we just go through the platform proposals and vote up or down? That's it. No debate, no discussion, just vote up or down. And that one, we had 70% of the convention. So that one, and we took no debates, no dilatory tactics from the PCDC delegations. And we went through all these proposals one after one, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see, because what happened was the whole body of almost 1,000 delegates would rise on every single one of these. There were a couple of people who, for whatever PCDC reason, they didn't support it. So, but these things were winning overwhelmingly, like 95%, 98%, and everybody, even PCDC and MC. So the PCDCs and the Mises Caucus were all rising together and sitting together on every single one of these. This one actually is, I think, inspired in large part by New Hampshire. I don't know if you know this, Keith, but we actually had a bill in the New Hampshire House to allow the citizens to vote for whether they stay underneath the federal government thumb or not. We actually have in our Constitution, the New Hampshire Constitution, it says that we don't have to stay. We reserve the right to leave. And so this was, there was a bill just to have a plebiscite to indicate whether we should stay or should we go. It failed, but it got national news. It got their attention. At PorcFest, we have Tex Exit and Cal Exit there, and other secessionist movements because we're kind of a hotbed. Now, I agree with you. I don't think little New Hampshire can secede by itself, but I really strongly support California.
I want to stop you there. Why not? I didn't say that.
I'm sorry. Well, it's just that there's a certain might and power that the federal government has to keep its slaves. And when one small part of a plantation tries to leave, that power can be focused on that area. However, if large chunks of the plantations are all leaving at the same time, one small group can slowly inch out the back door. So that's our hope. We have a lot of hope on Tex Exit. We have a lot of hope on California Exit. We highly support the California Exit, even though it is an authoritarian exit, right? They want to leave the federal government because they think the federal government is not authoritarian enough. They want to create a very woke government, a very powerful government that is controls all their different aspects of their life. And I believe that they should have the government that they choose. I really do. I want them to have whatever type of governance they want, as long as we can do it too. And we have one place that we can create that. We have that will be New Hampshire. It's not going to be in California. You California libertarians, what the heck are you doing there?
No, they're not. They're not going to. We'll see if California. Or you can take that image down, Beverly. Do you see Texas as being more likely? I do. It's easier.
Yeah.
Even though it's got the numbers.
More likely. They've always been separatist.
It's got the number problem where you got to convince more people 10, 20, 30 times. I think it's somewhere in the 30 million range. I'm guessing the numbers, don't quote me, but so you're talking, 30 times New Hampshire, right?
Well, but they don't have to rely on libertarians though. They only have to rely on conservative authoritarians, and there are a lot of conservative authoritarians heading to Texas.
They can rely
as they are heading to Florida, and I highly support them that they ought to have the same governance that they want. They want a governance that controls what you ingest and stuff like that. If they have a governance that says you cannot have guns like Florida does, you guys are heading in the opposite direction around that. God bless you. Good luck. But we need one place where we who are libertarians can live free, and live free or die state is the place that we're doing it.
It's an interesting discussion going through the differences between a New Hampshire exit and a Texit, like which could happen easier, and what are the differences. And we'll be talking about that. I guess this would be a good time to do a shameless plug for myself for the Liberty 101 series that you started this year. I'm doing a talk on secession on Wednesday at PorcFest, Secession 101. I agree with it, and I spent some time with the New Hampshire exit guys last year. I think a small state could do it. It wouldn't be the smallest country in the world. A lot of the arguments against it, but Texas pretty powerful. Actually, I happen to have it right here. I'll put it up for great book, guys. Great book. Anybody that's interested in this subject, Daniel Miller nails it here. That's sitting on my table.
You're giving your talk on kind of an intro to secession on Wednesday. And on Tuesday, though, we actually have a panel up on the stage, which is includes Cal Exit, Tex Exit, New Hampshire Exit, and other groups. So it's actually a big panel.
That's on Tuesday. That's on the main stage in the pavilion.
That's on the big stage. Yeah. And so
mine is, as we talked about it, mine is it's an intro. We call it like Secession 101, and I'm going to do my best to do a balanced view and go through some of the arguments for and against, and explain them without. I'm not going to try to sell it. I'm going to talk about it and talk about what some of the arguments are, and attempt to fairly, even though I am personally on the side of leaving. As far as, if I live in Florida right now for a bunch of reasons. As far as staying in Florida, well, we'll talk later about. I'm coming there. We're actually coming up for a while. I would consider buying property and changing voting there. But the one possibility is staying in Florida. I think it's an outside chance compared to New Hampshire and Texas, but there is a Flexit movement. There is a group. There are people. I chat with them online. Flexit is a thing, and Florida is one of the states that economically has a lot going on for it. It's got a great border. It doesn't have, one of the things with New Hampshire, it's got tiny sea border and tiny, and the other borders to Canada, which is basically communist now. Like your major border is to a communist country. Florida's got an advantage there. But anyway, I won't get into that detail. I am going to talk about it. So again, a shameless plug. I'm looking forward to hearing Daniel Miller talk again. And we read his book in book club on the Unsafe Space Book Club. I'll have to paste the link for that in the show notes. I had another platform that I found the image for. So Beverly, if you want to put up, it's called Proposal 7. And I guess, Dennis, you said these all passed, or did this one pass?
Yes.
This is marketplace freedom. This is really interesting. It deleted the word corporation. I'll read what they called current wording, which I guess is the PCDC old wording. This is the loser's wording. Libertarians support free markets. We defend the right of individuals to form corporations, cooperatives, and other type of entities based on voluntary association. We oppose all forms of government subsidies and bailouts to business, labor, or any other special interest. Government should not compete with private enterprise. I'm a system engineer. I would like to change should to shall there. Just want to point out that's a mistake. If you want to read the if adopted, we'll read, which was adopted, right?
Yes. We all stood for this one. Libertarians support free markets. We defend the right of individuals to form commercial enterprises based on voluntary association. We oppose all forms of government subsidies and bailouts to business, labor, or any other special interest. Government should not compete with private enterprise. We call for a separation of business and state.
Very good. If I was there, I would have encouraged them to change the should to a shall. But they reject government charter of corporations.
But remember, it was an up or down vote. So
yes. Okay.
That level of wordsmithing with 1,000
I have to find my camera. I definitely vote yes for that one. The whole concept of a corporation is a big government fan. So when you say the right, it doesn't actually make sense from a fundamental rights. Like if you know what the word right means, we defend the right of individuals to form corporations. What are you doing there? You're defending the right, like it's a right to have a government give you a license to incorporate your business. Like that requires believing that there's a right to have a government and that the government is a certain form of government and that you have a right to have a government that includes corporate licenses to businesses. Like it doesn't make sense. I would like to, I wasn't around when they wrote that or anything. And this is the first I've seen it, but I think the person who wrote that didn't really think through what a right is, or they couldn't have written it that way.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Thoughts on that? You know what I mean? Like, do you have a right to there's no right to have a government.
That's right. Well, I mean, all rights start from self-ownership. There are performative contradictions that if you reject self-ownership, that basically, you can't reject self-ownership. So you start off with self-ownership, and then if you own your own body, well, you can move it however you want, even if someone calls it labor. You can associate with it with whomever you want, even though someone might call that, oh, that's a business. But it's just two people interacting with their fully self-owned bodies moving together, and the things that you produce from your movement, your labor, from using your body up, how you transfer your body into inanimate objects. That's your product. That's your property. It's your own property, not because some government says it's your property, not because of some arbitrary rule. It's your property because you've invested, you have put in there your body, and you still own your body. So the whole idea that commercial is somehow separate from self-ownership, it's just such a false dichotomy. It is a false dichotomy. Property rights come from self-ownership. And we have to say, no, government, so much of the corona fascism that we had was this fascistic idea where the government, using its regulations and its licensing and its powers to hurt and to help various companies, controlled the people's bodies through the corporations. So that's what fascism is basically. Socialism is the government just takes over all the factors of production. In fascism, it's still government taking it over, but they leave the semblance of the corporations and the companies out there, and then they just control the companies, and the companies do all the dirty work. That's what we're going through now. It's not that company X tells us to do Y with our bodies. It's that the government is requiring company X to tell us to do Y with our bodies. It's still government. They're just working through an intermediary, and they think that we can't see that intermediary. We're libertarians. We're a little bit smart. We're smart enough to see 1 degree of separation. I'm sorry, we are.
Yeah, it's the commercial. So changing the word to be commercial, which just means based on voluntary interaction, a commercial enterprise is one person producing something, service or good that the other person wants, and you voluntarily exchange something of value for that. You don't need a corporation for that. You don't need a government to regulate that, and you don't want it. So that's a good one. I'm glad to see that one got through. And it's easy for people to miss that. I think a lot of people would skim through that, or read it even seriously, read the original wording and not question it. Think, yeah, of course you have a right to form a corporation. But no, the right is to engage in a commercial enterprise, to engage in voluntary interaction. I did the episode for called a theft day, but basically the April 15th episode of Rebel Civics, taxation is theft. And that's part of this whole argument is you have the right to own your body. You have the right to own the output of your labor, and the government claiming it can just take some percentage. You have to ask yourself the question, if the government owns 1/3 of your labor output, are you a free man or a slave? That's basically the theft argument. So that's a good platform. Another one that I saw was the anti-bigotry. I saw a tweet that you did a few days ago. Maybe it was when you're at the convention. You said one reason anti-bigotry cannot be in the Libertarian Party platform. Apparently, it was or is in there, anti-bigotry.
Yeah, the line in our platform, and this was the big objection in our platform, was that we condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant. So go ahead and read my response to why that's an anti-libertarian stance.
Oh, I don't have your whole response up. I was just going to ask you the question, but your response was along the lines is like, well, first off, anti-bigotry, it's kind of like a no shit, of course. Like, why does it have to be in the platform? And what do you do with an anti-bigotry party plank? Like, what's the action with that? There's no action, I don't think. If you're libertarian, if you believe in free association, then it's not even a question. So I don't even understand it as a plank in a actual libertarian party. Now, the PCDC one, as you call it, I think I use the term Beltway libertarians. Is that pretty much the same?
Well, that's just one part of that coalition. So I use PCDC simply to indicate it's a larger coalition than just the larger Beltway, or the PC libertarians, or the Prags, or the it's a fairly large coalition. It's just not as large as the Mises Caucus coalition.
So what happened? They removed the bigotry plank. You don't have to replace it with anything or reword it, right? You just get rid of it. And so the argument was that they can't do that. Is that what the old guard argument was?
Well, that particular line was weaponized by the PC woketerians. And they would say, they would cry, remember, their game plan is to call everyone a racist, or everyone a misogynist, or everyone a transphobe, or everyone a Nazi, and of course, the way that they're calling you that isn't because you say, oh, I believe in racism, I believe in homosexuals should be X, I should, the way that they're doing it is they go, I know what the thoughts are in your head are. I am so clever. I can read the dog whistles, and you deny it, but you may be denied it because you don't really realize it. I know. So it was weaponized to attack libertarians all across the United States. It actually was used to wipe out 47 members of the Libertarian Party in Massachusetts. It was the catalyst to wipe them out, because the people said, well, those people aren't libertarians because they are bigots, and we know it because we think that they think this. It was just playing these mind games that the left loves to play and tries to get us on. So that was my number 2 or number 3 target of the Libertarian Convention, after, of course, getting the leaders in there that we need, because it's just still not libertarian. We believe in self-ownership. We believe that you fully and completely own your own body. And guess where your thoughts lie? Your thoughts lie in your head. And if you want to use that head of yours to come up with any stupid idea, well, you're more than welcome to come up with stupid ideas. I come up with stupid ideas. Most people come up with stupid ideas. I know, Keith, you do not come up with stupid ideas. But most people do, and
I haven't told you about them. That's all.
And libertarianism, as libertarians, we do not tell you whether your idea we deem stupid or not. It's just you're using that idea. All we care about is, is that then expressed as an initiation of violence against your fellow man? Or, you could be a total bigot and yet you still allow people to live their own life, and you don't interfere with them, and you don't threaten them with violence or initiate violence. We don't care as libertarians. Now, sure, if you belong to a particular church, or if it is, you may have a bigotry against those types of bigots. Fine. Have that. You can be bigoted against anyone you want to be, including bigots. Totally okay. It's just not in the libertarian platform. It is not a libertarian thing. We are self-owners. We are trying to push this idea of self-ownership after 6,000 years of this belief that slavery to rulers is the way that the world works, that our rulers have a supreme ownership over our bodies. They may tell us what we may put into, may put out, how we may move it in labor and leisure, how we may associate it or not associate it, and what we may do with the product of our body expressed in external objects, and that they can take it from us and use it how they choose. Right? 6,000 years we've had that. Libertarianism is the first time we've said, no, you own you. Rulers do not, they're not a special type of human being. They do not own you. And they may not tell you what to do. So that's the basis of libertarianism. So here, the Libertarian Party, run by the PCTC, say, okay, you own you, but you can't use your body in order to have these types of thoughts. What are you talking about? It's your body. You can have any stupid thought that you want.
Yeah. What other platform changes did you support? What were some of your highlights that you really pushed in? You mentioned this one was number 1, 2 or 3.
Yeah, that was the most important one, I thought. We did the secession one for New Hampshire is really important. I'm not 100% sure, which ones were expressed. It went by so fast. I know that all the platform ones that came through. Actually, I have the document here, so I can share with you.
Yeah, pop one up. I remember seeing something about abortion. They're going to remove official position on that.
Yeah, and that was a pretty controversial one. That was actually the one that the PCDCs were the most upset about. I understand. So the previous platform said, look, people will differ on this. The reasons why they differ are largely outside of libertarianism, because libertarianism is an ethical movement or consequential movement. It is not a metaphysical movement that tells us when a human being becomes a human being. That is just not, that is a belief system that lies outside of libertarianism. So they said, okay, people will disagree, but we don't think the state should be involved in this decision. So it was actually, in effect, a pro-choice position, which about half of the libertarians were against. Libertarianism, because if you tell me when a human being starts, okay, and if you tell me who initiated the aggression, whether the aggression, the fetus aggressed into the woman's body, like for example with rape or not, or the woman invited that into her body, I can then apply libertarian ethics. I cannot apply it without those two preconditions. I'm actually going to give a talk in Liberty 101 about the problem that abortion presents for libertarianism. So anyway, so what a lot of the Mises Caucus said was, look, this thing is so divisive, and we don't really have an answer. Let's just remove it. Let's remove that plank entirely. Take it out and just say, look, we don't have a position on it. We don't know where the hell this goes.
I think it's it's a good tack to take for a national party, specifically for a national party level. I might think a different thing at the state level than I would for national, but to me, there's no question the national party should not get involved in that issue, because the national party is about national level politics. And the way the United States is set up, the federal government has no authority on this either way. So, I've been arguing the Roe v. Wade question that people are so upset about on both sides. Some people say that it's a human being with all the rights from the moment of conception, and other people say that you should be able to abort it the day before natural childbirth. And I don't care. I don't actually argue. I do have a position on those, but I don't argue with either side of that. As far as Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court has no authority to weigh in either way on that. There's nothing in the Constitution that delegates authority. So of course Roe v. Wade should be overturned. It's unconstitutional. They should have never taken the case at the first time. It's a state matter. So as far as national politics go, I would say a national platform political party should not have a stance on it at all. It's not part of national politics.
That was one of the few areas where I voted against Mises Caucus, and I actually voted against my entire delegation. My entire delegation voted with Mises Caucus to remove that plank. I stood for pretty much the same argument that you're making, Keith, that I thought we should have something in there because it is such a big issue, and that we should say it's not a national thing, because we could see where you have different states having different rules, just like they have different rules around murder and theft and stuff like that. And you can have, the states having different rules around abortion. We don't do, crimes at a national level. That's just not what we do. And then to take this and make it a national issue when we have states, and we can have 50 different or more, if you go the libertarian way, we have 50 plus different laboratories of what to do, and people who are so against it can live in one place where their views are founded. I mean, California, they kind of came out after the Supreme Judicial Court saying, look, we are going to have the most pro-abortion planks in California, and again, that's fine. Why don't they do that? That's their choice, and I think that if you live in California and you think that that's great, if you live in New Hampshire, you think that's great, and you're really upset with Roe v. Wade, move to California, and they're going to force everybody to pay for abortions, for free abortions, and they'll have abortions up to first year of college or something like that. Well, and God bless them, they can do that. Conservative states might have, way early thresholds, or absolutely none whatsoever. And again, I don't know from a libertarian ethical perspective where the proper thing is. I know where my gut is, what my personal preference is. But here again, just like that bigotry plan, what happened was, people's personal preferences got in the way of saying what is libertarian. Libertarianism doesn't really help us in this area. And you need something else. So, having a breakup and allowing people to decide based on their own religious convictions or non-religious convictions or metaphysical beliefs, I think is the way to go. And that's the reason I voted against it. Not because I'm pro-choice or pro-life. I don't feel like I need to talk about where I am on that. I have strong beliefs and that type of thing. But just from a purely ethical perspective of what it is that we know and what we don't know and where libertarian ethics is. I think libertarian ethics is so important. We're killing so many people. We're enslaving so many people. We're stealing from so many people, extorting them, beating them, retarding them. And I think that we need to focus on removing our slavery to rulers. And if this stupid plank keeps getting in the way, I understand the argument for getting rid of it.
Just drop it. Yeah. And I think you take that position. It's a matter for the state level. So at the national level platform, if somebody says, what's the national position on abortion? You say, ask your state. Yep. It's a state issue. It's not a national issue. And states will be considerably different. Yeah. New York and Alabama are going to be totally different. Florida's kind of in between those two, but yeah, I'm not that far from Mississippi and Alabama. They're going to limit it a lot more. It's an interesting question from philosophical point of view. Like, where do you put the line? So I'll come to your talk, and I'll be the guy in the back row heckling. No, I won't.
I'm not saying where to put the line, because I don't think that libertarianism guides us on where to put the line, and that's the problem. Where libertarian ethics is such a powerful concept. You go from self-ownership and you move up. But if you can't establish self-ownership, which is the problem with abortion, libertarian ethics can't guide you. So it's one of those things. It's one of the few areas where I think we have these big political battles, and libertarianism can't help. It can help in so many areas, and I think we should focus on the areas that it can help, and then devolve power. Subsidiarity.
I think what you're raising. It's a primary question, is because there's a philosophical question here. There's an ethical question. There's a culture question, and you have to do all that before you get to the politics part. So the party can't decide politically what to do something if you haven't worked out the philosophy behind it. And that is really the whole purpose of the unsafe space, is really to get. The line that politics is downstream from culture, and it's a Carter line, which I use all the time, is that culture's downstream from philosophy. So a question like abortion to me is like, you got to work out the philosophy of this. You got to go through the ethics and figure out, what is this entity you're talking about? Is it a person? Is there a line? Like the 3 months is an arbitrary place, but it is a problem to draw a line. It's an interesting philosophical question. So we need to figure out the philosophical question, the ethical, the philosophy of ethics answer to that. And then that has to permeate through the culture. And then once that's settled in the culture, then you can start talking about politics. But if you try to do it backwards, you just get the infighting that we see over the abortion issue. So I just answer the question now, like, well, murder isn't a federal crime. There's no federal crime called murder. So I don't care if you call abortion murder 2 days after conception. It doesn't matter, because murder isn't illegal at the national level. That's a state thing. Level.
Yeah, it's
you got to go to the 10th Amendment. It's the 10th Amendment that tells you what to do with this, which is this is a matter for the states.
And states can be stupid about it, right? Look at San Francisco, where theft of under $1,000 is a traffic ticket, and so these people are going in and totally destroying stores, stealing outright, and the people can't do anything. Okay, well, that's their choice, and there will be consequences. There will be consequences to that decision.
What the hell? Like, it's hard to imagine the mindset of someone who can't picture what this could happen. Like, what could go wrong? You know, we won't. It's no longer a crime for a homeless person to go into a store and steal under $100 worth of stuff. Like, what could go wrong with this?
I think it's 1,000.
1,000, yeah.
I think it's $1,000. That is just basically a ticket.
The concept is ridiculous especially from a private property. Yeah, I'm not moving to California. Don't worry about that. We may need a wall, but I actually didn't know about CalExit until last year when the CalExit guy was with Daniel Miller on the main stage of PorcFest. I never heard of such a thing. I've heard of the Jefferson State Project, where some of the a lot of libertarian tendencies, but the people in part of California want to split away from Sacramento and LA and San Francisco. California is too big.
I think there's
the seventh biggest economy in the world. Like, California is way too big. Just by itself, it would be the seventh biggest economy country in the world if it was alone. Splitting California into 3 states. I'm familiar with the San Diego part from work, because what I did for a living. I've spent a lot of time in San Diego with people there. Like, that's totally different from San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like, having those two people be part of the same state, those two groups be in the same state, isn't a good idea, in my opinion. So yeah, break up California, and we do need a border wall. Florida may need one across between here and the Northeast. And I'm not counting New Hampshire in that. Don't New York my Florida, if you ever heard that expression. And bumper sticker. It's a popular bumper sticker. Don't New York my Florida.
If you go through the various states, there's about 20 or so that actually have active partition arguments. A partition is where one part of the state wants to partition itself from another part and become a separate state, as West Virginia partitioned from Virginia over slavery. So there are these partitions. You talked about Jefferson, which is kind of a partition and a readjustment. So kind of part of California, part of Oregon, part of Idaho moves together.
That would actually be a secession. Right? That is a secession.
Well, yeah,
it's not a national divorce.
State, but because we're a federal system, they call it a partition. But yeah, I think that type of localization, bringing people with similar values together, it's basically the Free State Project, right? We're having to migrate there, but there are so many people who live in a state where it's controlled by another portion of the state, and they are miserable with that. And they look around their neighbors, they go, "Well, why are we being controlled by those?" I won't say the word, those people we don't like. Why are we being controlled by them? And the answer is, the libertarian answer is that, rulership governance. I am a panarchist. I believe that you should be able to choose the type of governance or none at all that you prefer. And if you want to be governed by a Hillary, well, good for you. Yeah, you obey Hillary. If you want to be governed by DeSantis, good for you. If you want to be governed by Trump, good for you. The question is whether you need contiguity of real estate to do so. I don't think you do. Some people think that you do. Well, great. That's what we're doing with the Free State. We're actually migrating people to contiguous area that will be a libertarian homeland. But I think we're seeing that with Florida and Texas and Indiana, as we're seeing it with California and Oregon and Washington, with the progressive states. I think that's where our future is. The United States can't hold together. They're destroying the money supply, which is, the whole end the Fed thing, and the way that you talked about a third of our money our wealth is taken by the government. It's way more than that if you include unfunded mandates and regulations that require us to labor and thwarts our business. Certainly income tax and sales tax and corporate tax. Corporate tax is just an indirect tax of the consumer, and then the inflation tax, where our prices should be dropping, and that would be increasing our wealth. As productivity increases, prices should be dropping. But instead, they inflate the money supply. They keep prices actually increasing. They're stealing that amount of wealth from us all the time, and we don't see it. Libertarians see it because we're smart. We know what they're doing.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden with inflation, starting to shoot up towards 10%, people are going, oh, inflation's a problem. No, inflation's always been a problem. It's always been stealing from you. They just have tricked you into not being able to see it because you don't see where prices ought to be if we had a freedom. So it's I think that the United States will do a national divorce. I really support having various groups divide at the gross level, maybe a conservative U.S. and a progressive U.S. and then a very teeny tiny little libertarian U.S.
Yeah, I think it will end. It's as I said in the beginning, all empires end eventually based on all of history. So the history of the Earth shows that predicts, I'll say, even though predicting the future has a terrible track record, since there's never been one in history that lasted for a huge number of years. Centuries is a long time for an empire. So yeah, I don't think it'll last, and I'm glad people now are not afraid to talk about it. 10 years ago or so, probably 15, when I first started thinking about it, there's very few circles you could bring this up without getting attacked. Somebody will beat you over the head with an American flag on the pole as a traitor, like you're a traitor. I like to point out, I guess you think Thomas Jefferson and Patrick Henry were traitors since they seceded from a tyrannical government.
Yeah, we celebrate 4th of July as Secession Day.
Yeah, Secession Day is good. I called it Independence Day, but
yeah, well, it's Secession Day. We seceded from England, and
it was a secession. Yeah, that was a secession, and it's not even a national divorce because they weren't states yet; they were colonies. So yeah, that was a group of people that formed what they call a state, and they seceded from the state of Great Britain. That's the way they worded it. Like Virginia was a state. We were talking yesterday about the 4th of July episode. We're going to do a special 4th of July episode. I don't call the holiday the 4th of July. We'll release it around there because every country has a 4th of July. Like, what is that? And that's, the holiday federally is Independence Day. So anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that. That's going to happen right after Porkfest. So, yep, I don't want to digress into that topic, interesting as it is. So I'm glad to see what's happened with the Libertarian Party. Maybe I'll start paying a little more attention to party politics.
Well, if you haven't been a member for a while, I urge you become a member just to throw them some bucks and say, yeah, this, I'm excited about what you guys are doing. You can always drop it again in the future. I think membership is like $25 or something like that. But we had I think we raised more in one day than they had raised. We raised over $200,000 in one day, more than the National Party had raised in months and months and months. The hit pieces on the Mises Caucus had talked about how people had stopped contributing to the Libertarian Party, implying that it was because of the Mises Caucus, and it was really because of the shenanigans and the lack of integrity, and the dishonor of these PCDCs, the terrible things that they were doing in these political games. And it was absolutely appalling to longtime libertarians like me, going, I'm not going to give them a penny until this stops. And so now the floodgates are open, and we're very excited. So I urge people, jump on, give them a thumbs up, at least become a member and find out what they're doing. But if you want to contribute, if you think that spending your time in your state to make your state free, even though you don't have the libertarians to do so, but you can convert enough people in your state, God bless you, go do it. But do come out to the free state of New Hampshire. Do come out to the free state of New Hampshire. See what a whole bunch of of libertarians, highly concentrated, determined. The toughest ones, the ones that love liberty so much that they will uproot their lives and will migrate in order to create the first ever free society. Look what we've done in 19 years, and you will be amazed. Please come out and visit. And when you come out to Seacoast, come see me. And I might even be wearing one of Keith's hats.
Very nice. Very nice. And that's very nice hat in the sun. I'll watch for that hat. You better bring it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I thoroughly enjoyed New Hampshire. It's a beautiful place. I do enjoy it in the summer, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not really fighting for Florida. I would support Flexit, like you said. Like that to me would be a reason to stay in Florida. If Florida left the union, but I don't expect Florida to go before New Hampshire or Texas or maybe Tennessee or Idaho or there's ones that are ahead of Florida, I think. But there is depending on what part of Florida you're in, there's a pretty strong leave me alone liberty movement in parts of Florida. I came from New Jersey originally, so I lived in the Democratic People's Republic of New Jersey, as I call it now. That's a totally different place. Like I talked to you earlier about having a PorcFest event called State Least Likely to Secede, and we would argue like who's. And I said, well, I'll do New Jersey. We posted in the PorcFest group. A bunch of people said, I'll do New Jersey. Like everybody could do New Jersey. We need some people from other states who do it. So we never did go through with that. But I think New Jersey would be pretty high on the list. And when you talked before about splitting apart, like the difference between a split of a part of a state, like West Virginia, I eventually had to get rid of it because it was pretty worn out. But I grew up in South Jersey. So I grew up and lived most of my adult life in a place where a lot of people, natives would say, if you said they're from New Jersey, they would say, I'm not from New Jersey. I never even lived in New Jersey. I'm from South Jersey. And I used to have a shirt that said South Jersey, the 51st state with a big star. Like that was one of my favorite shirts. I eventually wore so many holes in it. My girlfriend made me get rid of it. But yeah, I think New Jersey actually is a candidate to split apart because the deep South, my parents live there below the Mason-Dixon line. Not a lot of people know, but the very bottom of Florida is below the Mason-Dixon line, the bottom of Jersey. The culture there is a lot different from the Newark, Jersey City kind of crowd, or Trenton. You get down into the farm country of South Jersey, it's a lot more like rural New Hampshire than a lot of people realize. So anyway, I'm looking forward to coming to New Hampshire again. We'll be at PorcFest. Anybody watching, come look me up. And we're going to spend another week or two in our camper. We're going to go into the White Mountains and find some boondock spots up a fire road, and you're not going to find me where I'm at. I'm looking forward to it.
If people want to join us in PorcFest, people are dumping tickets right now. There's everyone buys their tickets early because it's good to get early tickets. But then family things happen and stuff like that, and so they go, geez, I can't make it this year. So you can pick up tickets, and they're actually going pretty well. It's a buyer's market right now, so you can pick up tickets in the aftermarket. Come to PorcFest. I think it's called PorcFest Plans on Facebook. Or in Telegram, it's called PF Attendee Chat for PorcFest Attendee Chat, and we can direct you to where the formal aftermarket is. But there's people in those things. So I got 2 tickets. Who wants them?
2 tickets.
The other thing
campsite I can't use.
Right? Yeah. People, we sold out campsites in January, and now campsites are being. I just saw one today being offered. That they can't use, and I'm a little bit disappointed. The guy runs a hub. We have all these hubs of activity all throughout the state, all throughout the campground, and he runs a hub that he sells hemp pretzels, and it becomes kind of a big center of activity during PorcFest. Yeah. So I'm disappointed. He's been there for years. He's got a family issue coming up though. So you can get campsites, you can get hotels. I saw a hotel 2 days ago that came up. You can get tickets. And if you can't make it up to PorcFest June 20th through the 26th for the greatest time of your life, come out to the Free State. We have events every single day. You can come and hang out at a Liberty Clubhouse. Come out to the Seacoast and see us free coasters, as we like to call ourselves. We'll show you a good time. We have a new movers on potluck on the first Tuesday and the third Sunday, which are always fun to go to. A lot of people, a lot of Liberty people come there. We have dances, we have comedy shows, we have political debates, we have politics, planning, and you can go to shoots and newbie shoots, or go out and shoot a machine gun if you want and have fun with that, if that floats your boat, or learn about crypto and go and buy everything in crypto. So come out to the Free State, see what we're building. You'll love it. And we hope that you actually come out here and help us build the first Free State.
All right. So I want to tell people where they can follow you. Can you give your Twitter or?
Yeah, Dennis Pratt free. Dennis Pratt free. And if you really want to come and see me, though, come out to the Free State. People will find me. But Dennis Pratt free on Twitter, and I'll be I talk primarily about ethics, about Free State Project, about libertarian philosophy, and about PorcFest.
And core, your core articles are still up there, right?
Yes, you can still
even
find
though you're banned from writing anymore or commenting.
But there are other Dennis Pratts. Look for the one symbolized by my life symbol here. The peace, heart, and voluntariist sign. It's very easy to see which one's the real Dennis Pratt. There's some people who are just such jerks, and I don't know why they use Dennis Pratt. I feel like a copyright infringement. Copyright infringement.
Copyright your name. Okay. All right. So I'll see you for the 1 week Liberty little Liberty enclave up there in New Hampshire. Looking forward to
over 3 weeks.
Living completely free for a week. It's a blast. So, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks for sticking around until the end. If you're new to Unsafe Space, check out our deep content library that includes discussions with everyone from James Lindsay to Brett Weinstein. And please consider helping to fund our work by visiting unsafespace.com/donate. You can find us on a variety of social media platforms, and you can find a community of like-minded individuals on our Unsafe Space Discord server, which is open to financial supporters at any level. We hope to see you there.
Warning. This is an unsafe space. Dangerous ideas have been detected. The content of this production does not meet WHO health and safety standards. Please report to a United Nations Sanitization Center immediately. Association with the following individuals is strictly prohibited. Experts who benefit from printing money agree that printing money does not cause price inflation. Trust me, just 2 more weeks to slow the spread of monkeypox. If you think about it, no one should be allowed to express opinions. But don't. Think about it, I mean. That's not your job. Thinking has been scientifically proven to be less efficient than compliance. Science, scientific, and scientifically are registered trademarks of the World Economic Forum. Unauthorized use is prohibited. Computer voice courtesy. Never mind, that last line is fake news. Please disregard it and return to your safe space immediately. There will be cake.